I don't normally dress like this, but have you guys been doing your challenges? Yeah, my challenge today was my super challenge, which I think means that once I complete it, my hair goes blonde and starts going up, is that I needed to come dressed in the traditional garments of my people. But while I am Samoan, I am also Welsh, but that is not necessarily my people. I am from the proud cultural capital of New Zealand. I'm a Wellingtonian. And in a place in Wellington, there is an old place, a place of immigrants, a place called Newtown, and those are my people. We are the people of the scarf and the early morning triple shot latte. Or in my case, a long macchiato. Macchiato is an old Maori word. It means pretentious with a scarf. It's a very interesting green room to be back there too, because I'm like a brother here. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm just helping to empower young Maori youth and set them on a path to equality. Oh, awesome, bro. What about you? Oh, I'm just helping women to feel more comfortable with their bodies and set them on a path to equality. Oh, cool. What about you? Oh, I'm just helping empower deaf people in Christchurch and set them on a pathway to empowerment. What about you? Oh, I tell jokes. I set people on a path to laughing. So my name is James Nokise. I'm a stand-up comedian and other things. I didn't mean to do the other things, but that's just the way my life has gone. I didn't mean to be an innovator, but because I'm 34 and I'm Samoan, I'm one of the first Pacific Island stand-up comics in the world. Yeah. Again, you are applauding the fact I exist. That I haven't done anything, I just showed up. And I have an interesting story, so I'll quickly share you my origins. Like I said, I'm Samoan and Welsh, and that's very an interesting mix to grow up in New Zealand, because both my parents are immigrants. Samoans, if you don't know, are where the All Blacks get their backline from. Welsh, the white people, the English people used to make fun of before ginger people came along. So, growing up, these are my parents. This is back when they first met in Papua New Guinea, the traditional meeting place of Welsh Samoans, and they look very happy here. They actually got engaged 1 week after they met, which is beautiful for them, not so much for Mum's husband. But it's interesting. Chase your dreams, people. Chase your dreams. But that's the environment that I've grown up in. I've been very lucky. I've been doing stand-up comedy for 14 years, and for the last 6 years, I've been doing other things. One of the other things I did was I tried to write a show about my parents, because they actually have an interesting story. They split up when I was 4.5 years old, because Dad decided to be a little bit too much of a cliche. And this is back in the 1980s. Dad ended up actually dealing with his domestic violence problems. It was a slow process, it was a long process, but it was a process which set a pathway for my generation to see a way to control, not so much control, but to master the concepts of domestic violence which are prevalent in New Zealand society. He was one of the people responsible for helping to set up Pacific men's violence groups in Wellington. Doesn't sound funny, is it? And it really wasn't. I spent ages looking at this show going, oh, this isn't funny. I'm just going to make people feel awful for an hour. And then one of my bros went, oh, bro, I think you've written a play. I was like, what do you mean? No, man, this is a stand-up comedy show. He's like, nah, it's not funny. I reckon that's a play. So I fiddled around with it, stopped talking with my own voice, and split it into characters, and so made a play. And that play got nominated for the Chapman Tripp Theatre Award for writing. And I got told, wow, you are one of the few Pacific Islanders to ever be nominated for this writing award. I was like, oh, it's 2009. That's probably not a good thing. And that's how I became a playwright as well, as a stand-up comic. But I wasn't interested in just talking about any kind of stories. I wanted to talk about New Zealand stories, particularly about politics. How many of you have ever seen a political satire? Live. Yeah. That's weird, eh? We live in a country with so much humor. We got a prime minister who, if he was on stage, I'm pretty sure our sign language interpreter wouldn't have her hair in a ponytail. And that's like... There is humor to be found in our politics, but for some reason, because of the New Zealand, oh no, I can't express myself, I can't say anything, we don't do that. So I set up a theater company called the Nokise Collective. Our mantra was simple: be not afraid. Be not afraid to punch up, to call out those in power. And for the past 6 years, we've been making political satire down in Wellington. We are currently New Zealand's longest-running political satire live series. And again, it's not something we set out to do, we just exist. And this was the first ever poster that we put up. And it's also how I made my name, because back in 2011, we did the show in May, which predicted that Winston Peters, who wasn't in Parliament, would have a massive comeback and become a dominant force in New Zealand politics again. And everyone went, oh, that's hilarious. And then in November, they called me up and went, what else do you know? This is my theatre company. This is a small one of my class. We've gone as high as 22 actors. They don't work for very much at all, but we do political theatre there. And it's led to, as it was also the time when I decided to just say yes to projects. Not all projects, but I decided to embrace what I wanted to do. It's part of the reason I dress like this, because it's who I am. What you have to understand when you bring arts to these kind of meetings is what arts are. They are an expression of yourself. All right? I don't do this stuff because I want to make heaps of cash or necessarily because I change the world. I do it because fundamentally, in my being, I need to express what's here or I'm going to go insane. Those are my two options. All right? And so when people call me up, I'll listen to the project and I'll go, oh, yep, that sounds fun. Like, hey, James, do you want to host Dave Dobbin on the steps of Parliament to 20,000 people? Oh, yep, that sounds pretty fun. Hey, James, do you want to come and be a mermaid in a tank in the Perth Fringe Festival and perform to 300 people? I don't know how that works, but yeah. I'll just tell them that my name is Mufasa, and I am the king of the Pacific Island mermaids, the love child of a ginger mermaid from Wales, and a lobster. Because I reckon if Disney can appropriate my culture, I can appropriate theirs. Or last weekend, hey, James, want to come be a model at London Fashion Week? Sure, man, sweet ass. But the reason that I say yes is because when some of you guys are teenagers, well, when I was a teenager, my story was I was in a gang called the Bloods. And that's legit. I was in the Samoan version of the gang called the RSB. When I looked like this and I was 14 years old, I joined the gang. And 1 year later, I looked like this. Because that's the smile of someone who's discovered marijuana. That is also the pigmentation of someone, which I don't encourage you to do, but one of the things we need to do in New Zealand is be honest. There's a reason Fat Freddy's sell #1 all the time. And it led to me creating this show that I now tour, which is called So-So Gangster, or So-So Gangster, if you're Samoan. You get the joke. The reason I made it was because of stuff like this. Which is a Time magazine talking about the culture of violence. You probably can't see the small print, but it says, after a drive-by shooting kills a 2-year-old girl, New Zealanders demand a crackdown on the country's ruthless ethnic gangs. Now here's the thing. It really pisses me off. And it's something we all need to be aware of. Language has a power. So when you talk about ethnic gangs, you're basically saying, be scared of the brown people. The brown people are angry. The brown people want revenge. And when you have a country based on a kerfuffle over a treaty, there's a lot of people who don't talk about it. And that's why I do comedy, because comedy allows you to ease into topics. It massages the brain to deal with concepts that we shy away from, like racism, like homophobia, like sexism. I could go into politics or I could go into the private sector, but I enjoy how comedy opens us up to conversations. Now, sometimes comedy spectacularly backfires, particularly when Al Nisbet is involved and throws up cartoons like this, or this, because Maoris want everything. Blah. And the funny thing is, the more you travel around, the more you realize that's not necessarily a joke. And he's not the only one, and it's not just cartoonists, but there are issues on race, such as this here in Auckland. Auckland's racism towards Southeast Asians never seems to get talked about, and it's something we do need to be aware of, because it's kind of insane. You've got a whole bunch of people going, oh, these Chinese are coming over here, and they're buying all the land, and they're raising the prices. And you get people going, oh, yeah, these Chinese, oh, except for the Maoris who are like, oh, yeah, it sucks, eh? Foreigners come to your country and take the land, oh. So how do you use comedy in your social entrepreneurship? Because otherwise, why am I here? I'm just doing a comedy set on a Sunday morning. It's simple, to facilitate conversation. All right? There are things I can do. As a Samoan Welsh person, I can point out to you that I think it's quite funny that the Māoris represented at this conference just over in the corner by the stairs. You walk out the door, you see all the woolen hats all come and knit in a circle, but Māori culture has expressed itself just over in the corner. That's awkward, but also kind of funny. And that's not me taking the piss. That's me gently using my little comedy stick to go, hey, guy, check it out for next year. You know? And that's the kind of stuff that you can do with comedy. You can also issue a little bit of a challenge when you charm people. That's something my father used to say. You get people on board. What I do with my shows often, So Gangsters and me making fun of young gangsters. I mean, you can. The Killer Bees are ridiculous. They're walking around and yelling, just going, yeah, yeah. That's funny to me. But that show is not about them. That show is about the concept of gangs, and it actually finishes with talking about how politicians are gang members. My show that I'm touring next year is called Let's Talk About the Gollywogs, because actually we have massive racial issues in New Zealand, highlighted this week by the Real Housewives of all people, and we don't talk about it. And I tour that to Edinburgh next year. This 10-minute set I've done for you isn't really about making you think about how to use comedy. It's about making you think about systemic racism in New Zealand, because we don't talk about that, and we need to be aware of it, because all the Māoris and Pacific Islanders, make some noise. All the people on scholarships, make some noise. My challenge to you is this. Light a fire. So you're all working on projects, you all got stuff that you want to do, and it's for the future. But the thing with Festival of the Future is now. You're young people, and they'll go, oh, the young people are future. No, young people are now. Your time is now. Don't buy into people saying that your time will be later. We need you now, all right? Inaction is no longer acceptable. This is the crimes of my generation and those before laid at your feet, all right? You guys need to be active now and think about this stuff. And what unites you all in coming to this festival is you have a spark. You have a little bit inside you that is a spark. So get together and use that spark and grow it into a fire, all right? Because saving the environment is a very noble cause. But to Pacific Islanders, it's survival. Because, and I apologize for my language, but this is the only technical term I can say to you, we're fucked. And we need you to understand that. So, ladies and gentlemen, light a fire. But also, this is my bank account, and if any of you want to just put money, I didn't write a book. I'm not great at writing books. I tell jokes. I don't have any hand wash or water, but that's legit. That's legit, my bank account. Just you can take out your phones now and just take a photo, and to your parents, and they're like, what's this for? Just go, oh, Taika Waititi's got a new film. And it's fun day. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your day.